Hi, and welcome to our lesson today. We're going to be reviewing some algebra things that you've learned in the past about linear equations and slope. A big reason for doing that is that many things in nature follow linear patterns, and in this particular case we're looking at years of experience versus income. And if you had to describe this graph, you'd say, well, as the years of experience go up, so does income, right? To begin our discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about slope, and I'll remind you that many of your teachers would have told you earlier that slope is rise over run, which is exactly correct. We get a little bit more sophisticated. We can say that rise has to do with y values, and the amount of rise is the change that the y values go through. So change in y. Run, on the other hand, that would be change in x. And that leads right to a formula that many of you will remember. To find the change in the two y values of 2 points, you subtract them. So y2 minus y1 divided by the change in x, which would be x2 minus x1. And most of us going to be very familiar with that formula. We're looking at 4 different types of slope here. In this first one, as you look from left to right, that line is increasing. That means it has a positive slope. On the other hand, as you look from left to right, this one is falling. That means that it has a negative slope. A line that goes exactly straight across, a horizontal line, has a slope of 0. That is, there is 0 change in the y's. They stay the same. A line of this type has an equation that looks like this. Y is equal to some number. In this case, y equals 4. A vertical line such as this one has undefined slope, or no slope is another way to say it. Undefined is probably what most of us will remember hearing. That's what happens when there is no change in x. You end up with 0 on the bottom of a fraction. You can't have that, hence undefined slope. A line that looks like this one, a vertical line, has the equation of the form x equals some number. In this particular case, x equals -2 is that line. Now we're going to ask you to find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points, and I would just remind you that you can call this the first point and this the second. They each have their own x and y. I'm going to ask you to pause the video and find that slope, please. Okay, here's my slope calculation. I took the two y values from the points, -2, and subtracted the other, so -2 minus 4. Then it's over the subtracted x's, -4 minus a -3. Of course, you know that changes that to a plus minus a minus. So -4 plus 3 is -1. The slope of -6 over -1 reduces or simplifies to a slope of 6. So if you were going to interpret this, I'm going to put this over 1, you would say that this line goes up 6 while it goes right 1. Very good. Let's move on. So ladies and gentlemen, in this particular example, which is true by the way, this actually is a true story, Bermuda grass, it says, grows in Africa and Asia. It says it can grow at a rate of 5.9 inches per day. Folks, that's 6 inches a day, so I'm very glad it does not grow in the brownfield yard. Question says, suppose you cut a Bermuda grass lawn to a length of 2 inches. Could you write an equation that models the length of the lawn y after x days? And I'm sure you could. The pattern that you'd be following is something like this. The length of the lawn is equal to the rate of growth times the number of days plus the starting length. That just kind of makes sense. Will you pause the video and write that equation, please? Here's my equation. And I'm sure yours looks very much like. The length of the lawn, it says, is the y value. X is the number of days. The rate of growth was 5.9, so y will equal 5.9x plus the starting length of 2. All right, that equation, folks, was written in what's called slope-intercept form. And most of us, in fact, almost every time I ask people to tell me about the equation of a line, this is what they say. Y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, B is the starting point, or the y-intercept. Most of us think y-intercept because that's what we've learned, okay? Starting point makes sense when you're talking about word problems very frequently, because in this case we started with a length of 2 inches. All right, let's move on. Slope-intercept is great if you know both the slope and the y-intercept, but that's not always what happens. So we'd like to introduce you to the point-slope form of a line, which some of you may have some experience with as well. Point-slope is the name of this form. And the reason that it's helpful is because you can use it to write a linear equation if you know a point on the line and the slope. See, it doesn't have to be the intercept, just some point on the line and the slope. Or if you know 2 points on the line, because then you can find the slope. The format for the point-slope form is this: y minus y from one of the points, so I'm going to say y minus y1, is equal to slope times x minus x from the point. Okay, x and y are part of the deal here. When you write an equation in point-slope form, you fill in a slope and an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So let's do that. We're going to write an equation in point-slope form for the line that goes through these 2 points. First off, you're going to need to find a slope. And to do that, we're going to do the slope calculation here. Will you pause the video and let's see if we come up with the same slope. I have a slope of -5. And once I know that, now I can use that in conjunction with the coordinates of one of the points to write a linear equation for this line. So I'm going to call this my first point, this my second. I'm going to use the first point here, filling into the point slope format. It's y minus the y from the point, so y minus a -1 equals, then it is the slope that you just found, -5, times x minus the x from the point, and from that point we get a -2. Now I'm going to do some straightening up here. Minus a minus is plus, so y plus 1 equals -5 times x plus 2. Some of you excuse me, are not going to be satisfied with leaving that equation in this format, although this is the point-slope form of a linear equation that goes through those 2 points. Many of us would feel better if we did the arithmetic here, that is subtracted 1 from both sides after we distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and do that work out in the side here. Y would equal, and I'm going to distribute -5x minus 10, and then we have to subtract 1 from both sides, so there's that. In slope-intercept form, which we're more familiar, that linear equation is -5x minus 11. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to pause the tape, or pause the video right here. I would like you to do the same work using the second point. Okay, and we should come up with the same linear equation when we simplify. So will you pause that video? Here's my work, and you can see that yes, using either point, you simplify to the same linear equation. You have to, folks. Although both of these were in point-slope form, they look different, they're still referencing the same line. All right, let's look at our last little part here. We want to talk just a little bit today about graphing lines, something again that most of you are familiar with. In slope-intercept form, which as you know is y equals mx plus b, you graph by plotting the intercept, and then using the slope, rise over run, to find other points on the line. This one is not quite in slope-intercept form. We'd have to add 3 to both sides, so I'm going to do that. Y would equal -2x. Adding 3 would give us 8. So to graph this line, we'd go up to 8, and then we'd use a slope of -2, which means we go down, can't write worth a darn, down 2, while we go right 1. So to find other points on the line, down 2, right 1, do that a couple times so that you get a good look at where the pattern is, and then plot the line. Excuse me. From geometry, you'll remember that any line can be plotted by knowing 2 points. In fact, we could have plotted this line just with the intercept and having applied the slope one time. If a line is not in slope-intercept form, if it's written in general, which is what our book calls it, you may have learned this as standard form. That pattern is this: ax plus by equals c. Oftentimes, easier to graph a general form equation by using both intercepts. So you find the x and the y intercept. Those are 2 points, so of course once you know 2 points, then you can plot the line. I'm going to go ahead and put this so that the constant is on the other side. 3x minus 4y equals 24. I'm going to ask you to think about this. To find the intercepts, to find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0 and figure out what y would have to be. So in this equation, if I make x 0, then negative 4 times something gets me 24. That has to be negative 6. So the y-intercept is 0 and negative 6 down here. The x-intercept, you do the opposite thing. Set y equal to 0 and figure out the x that you would get. So if this part is 0 now, then x must be 8. That x-intercept is out here at 8. 2 points are what is needed to create a line. So there's our line, graphed by intercept. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the video. Get out there, do the U-try, and we'll talk about this in school.